A lot of the time, women do not go with the most attractive guy, the guy they like the most. They go with the guy who's persistent. And this is something that we don't really want to accept because it's very unromantic. And it kind of means that a lot of times when a girl goes on a date with you or you hook up with her, it wasn't because you were the best option. It wasn't because she liked you so much. It's because you made yourself very available and you put yourself out there. That is true a lot of the time. And I have one example. This happened the other night. I was with one of my wingmen. We approached two girls that were very attractive at a casino. It's going great. We're all getting along. We're all vibing. And it seems like this is likely to lead somewhere. Then, two other guys approach as well. And this will happen occasionally. Not very often, but it'll happen sometimes. So two other guys approach, and at first, they're actually not doing so great. They're kind of awkward. The girls are kind of like not feeling the energy. But the fact that different guys are competing over them, girls love that. Like, it's just true. Like, girls love having guys compete over them. There's something, it's just this fantasy. And so they're going to invite opportunities for that to happen. So these guys, they're not good looking at all. They're not smooth. They're not the most charismatic, but they have strong intent. They're there to pick the women up, and they're making that very clear. They're not ashamed about that, and they're persistent. So we start moving around with these girls and doing different things, like getting drinks, whatever. But a couple hours in, before we're about to, try to invite them somewhere, my wing says, "It was nice meeting you guys. Have a good night. We're going to leave." I wasn't expecting this, and actually I could have handled this differently, but I'll talk about that. So he said, "We're going to go." And he let the other two guys have the girls. It's like, they can have them because they're not going to leave. They're making this difficult. It's kind of awkward. This is all true. And I don't want to deal with this situation, which is understandable. But guess what that means? Who ended up going home with those girls? Maybe they didn't. It's possible nothing happened. I think it's very likely something did happen. But it wasn't us. It was the guys who were more persistent. And looking back, I should have just said, "I'm going to stay." Right? When he was like, "We're going to leave." Nah, I'm going to stay. I'm good. Like, I don't actually need to leave just because he's leaving. Even though he's saying suggesting I should. Why? Why don't I just stay? Right? That would be the mentality of someone the mentality of a closer. And a lot of, one thing that women do find very attractive is persistence, as long as they're not just completely repulsed by you. Right? As long as they're on the fence. Maybe I like this guy, maybe I don't. But they're not definitely, I do not like him. If they're in that category, then being persistent is creepy. Then they don't want you to be persistent. They want you to go away. And this is something that, following my videos, following other channels like me, and practicing, you get a better sense when you're going out talking to a lot of women. You get a better sense when there's a connection and when there's not. Generally, the simplest way to tell if a girl is just doesn't want you there but is tolerating you is flatness, emotional flatness. So instead of having feminine energy, having emotions, expressive emotions, they're okay. Kind of like Aubrey Plaza from Parks and Rec, but even more flat. Another big sign is that they do not want to invest. So they don't ask you questions. They don't give long answers. They don't make strong eye contact. They lean away from you. All these signs of just not being invested in the conversation. That's the simplest way to tell. But if they are investing and they are interested to some extent, a lot of the time, pulling or not pulling has nothing to do with how charismatic or smooth you are. It's just how much you lead and how persistent you are. How easily do you give up? And that's a mistake I made in this particular interaction. And I think a lot of the time you learn most from your mistakes. And I make mistakes too. Think about the times that you go out to approach women, you're talking to girls. How often do you have an interaction that seemed like it was going pretty well? I mean, she wasn't dismissive, she was investing. And maybe something could have happened, but you gave up on the interaction. She started talking to her friends and seemed to stop being engaged with you. And you're like, well, screw this. Or another guy came in. It turned out she had a male friend there and you just let him take over. Or you just asked for her number because you didn't want to put your ego on the line and actually try to make something happen. So instead of inviting her to dance with you, inviting her to go back to your place, you just got the number. Well, I'm sure you know, numbers, especially in like clubs, are very flaky. It adds up. If you get a bunch of numbers, some of them will lead to dates, but they are very flaky, and you generally have a better chance with a girl almost always if you try to make something happen right then. I'm not saying be aggressive, but why not just invite her, say there's a kickback, or say something that I pull often with is Connect 4. Would you like to play a game of Connect 4 back at my place? It's nothing that fancy, but it works. And the key difference there is that you make the ask. You just give it a shot. She might say no, but you get the yes or the no. Instead of having this maybe in your mind, what might have happened if I persisted? And that's what I have from the other night. Who knows what would have happened if I didn't give up so easily? So that's the message of this video. It's something very important, and oftentimes this is what makes the difference between being a guy who has a great dating life with a lot of options, a lot of opportunities, and someone who's just sadly, completely alone, gets no dates, gets nothing. It's not always the charisma or being good looking or even having game in the traditional sense of the word. It's just being persistent and not giving up too easily. I actually knew a guy that I met in Los Angeles who was very socially awkward, not good looking, and I did a few approaches with him, and he was so awkward that I did not want to approach with him anymore. So I moved on, and I saw him in the bar going up to girls and being like, within a few minutes, so want to come back to my place? And they'd say, no. And some girls would be like snickering at him because he was that socially awkward. And what I thought was, this guy, there's no way. Like, this guy's screwed. It's not going to happen for him. He really needs to change his entire personality to ever get a girl to come home with him. Later that night, I see this guy talking to a girl who literally looks like a model. Like, this girl is gorgeous and exactly my type. The kind of girl, like, I really would want to approach, but I'm not going to. He was already talking to her. So I figure, all right, he's gonna get blown out within a couple minutes, and then maybe I can swoop in afterwards. But I'm gonna be respectful and let him get rejected. I'm not gonna try to do it myself. I'm not that kind of guy. So a few minutes goes by, and then I see him grab her hand, and they walk out the club together. And I talked to him the next day, and it turns out they did hook up. This guy is very awkward, very weird to talk to, but he is very persistent. He does not care about getting rejected. He's not worried about getting his ego bruised. He's going to give it a shot. He's going to see what happens. And he would do better if he were to learn to be a little bit more smooth. He would do even better. But that guy was successful, whereas most of the other pickup guys that I saw out there were not. And a lot of them were smoother, more charismatic, better looking. And this is something we don't really want to admit to ourselves, because we have this romantic notion that women choose you because of how awesome you are. That's the only reason a girl will do it. And that's also why we think, oh, you got to be the super Chad who's rich and very good looking and all that. Sorry to say, A lot of the time, women choose a guy based on they're available emotionally in the moment. Maybe they just got over a breakup, or they're turned on because of they watched a Ryan Reynolds movie or whatever, right? They're just in the right state. And you were the guy that really put yourself out there. You made her feel desirable, and you took action. You shot your shot. A lot of the time, that's why women make their decisions in terms of dating. There was one time when I was going out with a friend, and I saw this really cute girl check out my friend several times. And I told him, hey, she's checking you out, you should approach. He's like, nah, not gonna do it. So I said, all right, well, I'll do it. I did it. It went pretty well, but I did notice she kept looking at him a number of times, multiple times throughout the night. But that didn't end up mattering. And later I brought her back to our hotel, and after we hooked up, then I asked, were you really into my friend? Because I noticed it seemed like you kept checking him out. And she said, yeah, I was really interested in your friend, but he didn't approach me. You did. She was more attracted to him, but I'm the guy who went for it. And if you're interested in results as opposed to getting your ego tickled by feeling cool, that is very, very crucial. Is being the guy who puts himself out there, who takes risks, who doesn't give up too easily. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button. Let me know if you've ever had experiences with this in your own life in the comment section. Have you ever had a situation where you ended up dating or hooking up with a girl who someone else, when she didn't seem that interested at first, or she liked someone else more? Or have you had it where the opposite happened? A girl seemed very into you, but you let it fizzle out, or you just gave up too easily, and then nothing ended up happening.